Our story begins with our main character stabbing a man while looking at a timer. He was angry that the man was already dead and noticed that he had 35 minutes left. After the battlefield ends, our main character Levi wanders around the place to search for survivors in a land filled with nothing but corpses. Our story is like a common tale from a fantasy novel, and it's about being born in a world full of swords, magic, and various adventures. After he dies painfully, living an unfair life in South Korea, the problem is that the world he now belongs to is very different from those worlds in novels. He was upset that he hadn't been able to find even a single survivor for days, but suddenly, he heard someone crying in pain and softly calling for help. He clenched his teeth and stabbed the man in the chest, causing the timer to increase to 20 hours. He wondered if the man was just an ordinary farmer and thought that 20 hours was not even worth a day and not enough. But then, someone appeared, saying that he now understood why there weren't many survivors in the past few days. The man stepped on the dead man's head and asked if it was him who did it. Then the man walked closer to him while telling him that the thrill of finding a fallen soldier who is relieved to have survived and watching their hopeful faces disappear was amazing. The man asked him if he couldn't escape after experiencing that once, making him look at the man in wonder. The man introduced himself as Soul Harvester, Stefan, but told him that he just killed his plaything. Stefan swung his huge sword backward, telling him that he guessed he was prepared to die. Stefan attacked him, but he blocked it using his sword. He still got pushed hard because of it and felt that Stefan was incredibly strong. Suddenly, Stefan attacked him once again, teasingly telling him that he wasn't bad because he blocked his sword. Then Stefan stared at him and said that he was quite good looking and young. He couldn't believe that he had found such a rare plaything, making Stefan excited. He told him he wondered what he would see on his face when he tore him apart and that he couldn't wait any longer. When Stefan was about to kill him, someone from behind cut Stefan in half, shocking and confusing him. The old man who was holding a huge axe called Stefan a perverted bastard and said that he knew Stefan would do it again. The other men thought Stefan was brave when he was a wanted man, and other man told his companion that Stefan wouldn't have done such a thing if he cared in the first place. The old man asked him if he was alright and told him that he had almost been in trouble, so he should be grateful. But he just ran with his weapon in front and furiously stabbed Stefan, who was lying on the ground. Then he continued stabbing Stefan while shouting for him to die at his hands, making the men fall silent. The one-eyed man told his captain that he would have also become mad. But the captain replied that he didn't know about it and thought it was desperation instead of anger. After he killed Stefan, his timer increased to 127 hours, and he was glad that Stefan was alive when he attacked him. He angrily looked at Stefan's lifeless body while asking if he said that killing people is fun and if he thinks he feels the same. Then he told Stefan not to make assumptions because he was not a bloodthirsty murderous monster like him. He had to do it just because of the timer he got when he reincarnated in that world. When that timer, which only he can see, reaches 0, he'll die. There is only one way to increase his time, and it's by killing a living thing. Even after so long, killing people makes his hands tremble, and his heart pumps really hard. It makes him wonder if he must keep living like this. The captain looked at him in silence and told him to join their mercenary squad. The one-eyed man asked their captain if he was sure, and the captain replied that the kid blocked Stefan's sword, so he saw potential in him. He asked the captain if becoming a mercenary would make killing easier. The captain told him that it was a weird thing to ask but explained that there is no way someone can get used to it because killing isn't normal, except for some perverts like Stefan a while ago. So, he doesn't have to get used to it because what's most important in the end is his own life. He asked him if that isn't why they all are working as mercenaries. Then the captain also told him that he should keep getting stronger because it's not just humans, but all living things live that way. They do it not because they want to but to survive. The captain told him to stand up if he understood everything, which he did. The one-eyed man said that he didn't like it, but since it was what their captain wanted, they should try to work that out. He was thinking that he didn't want to live above someone else's death. The one-eyed man asked him what his name is, and when he was about to say his whole name, he realized that, in order to live, he has no choice but to stand above someone else's death and told them to just call him Levi. He knows that, in order for him to survive, he became a terminally ill knight. A few months passed. In the pub, someone asked if he meant the soul harvester. Then the old man told the mysterious man that, of course, he remembered. And even if he wanted to forget, he couldn't. He told him that about a month ago, he met him in the territorial battle, and he was a serf soldier under Viscount Bayer. The old man also mentioned that he knew it sounded obvious, but he was also a knight, and he heard that the power the knights used was different from magic. It was called the chosen human who could use ether. As they knew, the mere presence of a knight on the front lines was a great fear for the soldiers, and ordinary soldiers couldn't even think of imitating the movements of a human who used ether. So, in front of their swords, they, the serfs, were as easy to slice as cheese. But still, they didn't run away because they knew they weren't the ones who should run away. They had the best knight squad of Viscount Bayer, consisting of Lord Jackson and 8 knights with them, which was called the Knights of the Ashen Mist. The only person who could kill a knight was a stronger knight, especially for Knight Nell, the aide of Knight Jackson. Since they knew of his great accomplishments in the territorial battle, they didn't doubt that the notorious Soul Harvester would get killed on that battlefield, at least until they saw Knight Nell getting cut in half. No one expected it, and silence fell on the battlefield. At that moment, he clearly heard what he said. He had accumulated enough life, and he would use 1,000 hours, then called the god of war, Raum, to lend him power. Then something unbelievable happened because Viscount Bayer's entire order of knights was slaughtered without even being able to hold for 30 seconds. They all ran away after they saw it, and when they turned their heads, they saw something in color glaring at them like it was saying it's not enough. The mysterious man asked the old man if all the Soul Harvester did was say the name of a god right before he fought, and if there wasn't anything else like eating something. The old man replied that he was not sure about it, making the mysterious man fall silent. He gave a gold coin to the old man, thanking him for the story. But when the mysterious man was about to leave, the old man remembered that he didn't mention the name of that mercenary. The mysterious man replied that he already knew it, and it was Levi Delosi, aka the Soul Harvester. The mysterious man thought that Levi had recently become famous and guessed that currently, Levi must be celebrating the battle victory with his allies. Meanwhile, in another pub, the mercenary squad cheered with their beers for their victory and celebrated happily with each other. Levi stood to the side, looking at the timer of 1,000 hours. However, he still thought it wasn't enough, and he didn't have enough life. He felt disappointed, realizing there was about a month and a half left. But he thought it was still better than living as Minhyuk because, in his real world, he was fated to die without being able to do anything in bed. He had wished to be born in a healthy body for his next life, but the person who called himself a god had said he would grant him his wish and brought him to that damn medieval fantasy world. He wondered if that god hadn't read any other novels because he didn't give him any special advantage, but rather a time limit. Levi knew that since an ordinary serf would give him a day to live if he wanted to live for 6 months, he would have to kill about 180 people. Considering the time he would have to spend traveling and sleeping, he would need to kill 9 more. It made him think it was nonsense, like he was the world's worst mass murderer. But suddenly, someone slammed a hand on the table and called out to him. One of the mercenaries asked him why he had a long face, but Levi just asked if he was already drunk. The man replied yes and explained that he didn't know when he could die, so he should drink as much as he could. Levi felt a bit irritated because he knew when he would die. Then someone appeared in front of them and told Levi to enjoy himself while the others were enjoying too. Their vice captain told him that having a sad battle MVP would ruin the atmosphere. Another mercenary asked him how he killed those guys and how he did it, now that the topic was brought up by the vice captain. The vice captain also seriously asked how he did it, mentioning that those kinds of foes weren't supposed to show up in a battle, especially Nell, who was soon to become a master level. Levi hesitated for a moment before replying. He told them that he got lucky because they weren't living up to their fame. He knew they wouldn't believe him even if he told them the truth. The vice captain replied that they weren't stupid and that 4 of their own were killed by Nell, so they knew that luck alone couldn't explain it. Then the vice captain asked him seriously what he was hiding from his allies, leaving him silent for a moment. Then he smiled and told them that he was just kidding, and they knew it was a joke. He reassured them that he would tell them, so they should listen carefully. He then told them that, in reality, he risked every bit of life he had in it. This left all the members momentarily frozen in confusion. However, they soon threw their beers at him, telling him that they all fought with their lives at risk and asking if he had multiple livers or something. But then someone suggested that they give Levi some privacy because nothing would change whether they knew what happened or not. Night Troop Captain, also known as Woodchopper, asked him if he could steal a moment of his time, to which he immediately agreed. The vice captain instructed him to come back quickly before they drank all the beer. Levi irritably asked the vice captain where his love for his ally had gone, and the vice captain replied that there was no such thing. After entering the captain's room, the vice captain ordered the man to stop drinking and bring those kids from the night troop. The man asked why, but the vice captain simply told him that they had work to do, and he was a bit bothered, but they needed to. Meanwhile, Levi opened the captain's room door and asked what it was about. Happily praised him and called him the MVP of the recent battle. Also mentioned that he didn't expect such a newbie to become someone great, but he saw something in him. Then grabbed him to sit down and suggested they have a drink. Levi hopelessly told his captain that he could go by himself. Asked if he remembered when he first came there, but Levi urged to just tell him. He asked if he had ever refused a job offer from Turn, pouring alcohol for him, laughingly replied no, but they should celebrate first and then move on to the next one because he believed they could achieve that much. Turn handed him a glass of alcohol, mentioning that they had just acquired these recently, and it was quite good. Levi drank and thanked him. Turn expressed his gratitude for what Levi did because Bayer had actually given up on that battle. It wasn't officially over since normally, the battle ends when Bayer pays for the compensation. However, just a while ago, Bayer expressed his desire to meet their employer. He told Turn that it seemed like Bayer wanted to have another round before giving up, and Turn agreed. He added that he was sure Bayer didn't want to pay the mercenaries and the soldiers he hired, so he must be planning to eliminate them all. Turn acknowledged that it was a shady move, but it was what the nobles do. For the secret mission, he wanted Levi to escort Viscount Bayer. Levi asked Turn if it wasn't enough to have anyone else do it when it was just guidance and escort that Bayer needed. Turn replied that it was all about Bayer's pride. He believed Levi's fame was sufficient to save Bayer's pride even if he got caught while wandering around. Then Turn handed him a piece of paper with the address of the contact place. As he was about to leave, Turn assured him that it might not mean much to him, but he would receive a proper reward and he could take it easy. Levi mentioned that he would think about the reward later and that the vice captain must be looking for him right now. Turn laughed heartily and wished him to stay safe. A moment later, he was outside, reflecting that he had been fighting on the battlefield just to live another day, while those noble individuals pushed people onto the battlefield merely to save a bit of money. He realized that it had been more than 10 years since he entered that world, but he still couldn't get used to the disregard for people's lives. However, he concluded that it wasn't his business. Then, he spotted someone behind a tree and asked if it was Viscount Bayer. Another person appeared behind him, leaving him puzzled. Soon, a group of men began to surround him, and he remarked that he was starting to recall bad memories. He looked at the men's armor and speculated that, judging by their attire, they were Bayer's knights. He inquired if they were there to seek revenge for their fallen comrades because if that was the case, it was great since knights gave more time than ordinary people. Just as he was about to attack them, he felt something inside his body and coughed up blood. Then, he collapsed to the ground, confused about what was happening. He knew it had never happened before and wondered if there was poison in the drink. The two men launched an attack on him while he was thinking that if there was really poison in the drink, he was not the only one who was in danger, but also his allies. But then the two men stabbed him together, making him shocked and stunned. Knowing who they were, the men pulled their swords back, making him fall to the ground, thinking that he had to hurry up. But then one of the men told him that even if he was the great soul harvester, he guessed he wasn't immune to ether neutralizing poison. Then the vice captain told him that it was a good thing that it was worth the price, and his other trusted ally also told him not to blame them too much because they weren't doing it because they wanted to. He asked them if the Viscount paid them to kill him and get the money placed on his head, and that's why they poisoned his drink. He told them that if their captain Turn finds out that they did it. But then one of the men told him that it was kind of hurtful because the one who put poison, the one who planned and ordered it was all Captain Turn. This made him shocked and wonder why Turn did it when they were allies. But then he said he gets that it was only him who thought that way and thinks that he really can't like that damn middle-aged fantasy world. Then he grabbed the sword that was about to kill him and told the system that he will pay 1,000 hours. The system showed him that it automatically purchased, as there is only one power he can buy, and it was the Blessing of Realm. Then the timer began to speedily go down while he was becoming stronger, making the vice captain shocked and wondering what was going on when he shouldn't be able to use ether. The system showed him that the Blessing of Realm, steam of the battlefield, is making his pain decrease, and he reminded the vice captain that he asked him in the lobby a while ago. Then the system showed him that the Blessing of Realm, ready for battle, was making his strength multiply by 10 and muscular endurance by 5. Then he reminded the vice captain that he was talking about how he defeated the Knights of Bayer, and told him that he must have been thinking he was joking around. But he told him the truth. Then the system showed him that the Blessing of Realm, execute battle, is forcibly healing wounds and doesn't comply with healing. Also, the Blessing of Realm, the Blessing of the War God, is all the ether switches to the War God's holy power. When the timer hit 16 seconds, he changed to a God mode, breaking the vice captain's sword into pieces and shouting that he risked his life. Then the system warned him that he had 15 seconds left of his life, but he just glared at them, smiling. The vice captain orders everyone to attack at once and tells them that Levi doesn't even have a weapon. But Levi teasingly asks them if they really think that he has no weapon. Then the system showed him that he had entered the field of the War God, and while the Blessing of Realm was activated, he could use Realm's weapon. He chose Realm's battle dagger, and the system showed him that the fee for using it was 4 lives per second. Then the countdown begins. He pulled out the huge dagger in front of them, making the vice captain shocked and ask what is that great sword. But Levi just attacked them speedily while the vice captain asked him when on earth he grabbed it. Then he forcefully stopped, and when the timer hit 1 second, He told the vice captain to let him ask one thing and ask them what kind of being was he. But the vice captain just teasingly told him that he was asking such an emotional question and asked him back if he expects them to become a family. Then they slowly falls to the ground, and before the countdown becomes 0, he gained 507 hours back. The system recovered Raum's battle dagger and Raum's blessing was deactivated. Then it showed him that the physical overload was temporarily compromising his ability, making him cough blood out and slowly fall to the ground in pain. But he managed to stay sitting while saying that the stupid god is a buff because it helps him just enough so he won't die. He wonders if all of Turn's mercenaries betray him, but he thinks it can't be because they have been allies for so long, and at the very least, one of them should be on his side. But then he was shocked to see the squad house and a few of his allies burning in flame and dead, making him wonder who would do such a thing. One man managed to survive and asked him why is he there. Then he told him to run away and that Turn betrayed them because Turn made a deal with Bear. But then the man was got slashed by half, and Turn told him that he drank ether neutralizing poison and still managed to defeat his underlings and returned unscathed. He really underestimated him or he overestimated those bastards. Levi told Turn that he was a crazy bastard and furiously asked why he killed his allies and if it wasn't his goal to kill him. But Turn just asked him what he was saying and told him that today he had not killed a single one of his allies because he has just simply gotten rid of obstacles to his goal. Levi furiously asks Turn what he means by obstacles and what is he saying when they are his allies. Turn told him that since he was the last one, he was going to let it all out and that he made a deal with Viscount Bear. If he abandoned that shitty mercenary army, Bear promised him a noble title. But if he let them be, they were destined to meet them in a different territorial war. He asked Turn if it was the reason why he decided to kill them, and Turn told him that he caught on fast. Since he was from the streets, he couldn't trust anyone, so that's why he thought he might do something stupid. He simply asked Turn if that was all, and then he attacked Turn in anger. But Turn managed to block his attack, smiling. They attacked each other continuously using their weapons, and he angrily launched an attack but Turn's blocked his attack making him push back hard. Turn just laughed at him and told him that he was going to give him a painless end. But now he guessed not. He told him not to forget that he was one of the heroes that made a name for himself in the Holy War that happened 50 years ago, so in terms of experience and skills, he was on an entirely different level compared to him. Then Turn swung his axe back preparing an attack while telling Levi to watch carefully because it was the ultimate ability that earned him his nickname, Woodcutter, and that it was something that could wipe everything in a 20-meter radius as if they all were trees. But Levi interrupted his speech when he slashed his body in half, making him shocked and cough blood out. Turn asked him how he was already using ether, but he just looked at Turn, who was falling, while saying that as he expected, he was right about his potential when they first met. He looked at their squad's burning house and his allies who were dead because of the betrayal of their captain. He thought that 2 years were the time he spent with Turn's mercenary squad, and it was the same as the time he spent in the hospital waiting for his death. In his past life, for 2 whole years, he just waited for death alone. But after 2 years in that world, he was the only one left, making him think that nothing lasts forever, and a day would come when he would leave that mercenary squad. But that moment just came a bit quicker. The current average lifespan of humans is 80 years, but it is if all the required conditions are met. 3 minutes is the time one can live without air, 3 days is the time one can live without water, 3 weeks the time that one can live without food, and then there is that counter that exists only for him. It was the time he can live without killing someone because to live another day, he must kill someone. To live a life like it, what he needs is an eternal war. But the bald man told him no and that what he needs to live is money. Then the bald man told him that he had 8,600 gold worth of debt. He angrily asked the bald man what he was saying when he never borrowed money in his life. But the bald man just asked him if he really thinks that he never lent money and told him that the building that his mercenary squad rented was burnt down yesterday evening. He shoutingly told the bald man that he got what he was saying but asked why he had to pay it back. The bald man told him to look at the paper and explained to him that those who join the mercenaries sign a pledge of joint guarantee responsibility, which means he was the one responsible for repaying the damages. He angrily told the man to stop trying to scam him because he never signed such a thing. But the man just smilingly asked him if he didn't see his signature on the contract, so he looked closely at the paper and remembered Turn telling him to sign that thing. He was signing the paper while asking Turn what it was, and Turn told him that it was an application to join the mercenary. Still, he angrily told the man that he didn't know what the contract was about, but the man told him that he should have read it carefully before signing. He angrily shouted that it was a scam and that he didn't even have money. Then he asked the man what he was going to do if he didn't pay, making the man pissed. Suddenly, sharp swords appeared near his neck, and a lot of men were around him ready to kill him anytime, while the bald man asked him if he asks what would happen if he didn't pay. Then he told him that first, he'll be stripped of his status as a mercenary, and he will not be able to receive mercenary status in that country or any other place. Second, a public bounty will be issued in his name, so mercenaries worldwide would be targeting him and tell him that he was not sure if he was aware. But magicians pay quite an amount for a knight's organ who uses ether, so he should make a decision, and told him that he was giving him 1 minute. He angrily told the man that 1 minute was enough, and if he decided to fight them, he bet he could kill half of them at the very least, so they should stop acting strong and put away the sword before he killed them all. The bald man told him to calm down and explained to him that he was simply explaining to him what might happen in the worst case scenario. Then the man asked him if he thought they could settle on something that was more mercenary style, like making money by practicing loyalty and fighting for one's life. He told him that in the morning, they got a request from Viscount Bayer promising a huge reward, and it's about dealing with illegal armed forces in the Black Forest owned by the Viscount. The man also told him that he sent a few expeditions, but they have always failed. He thinks it hasn't even been that long since Bayer was his enemy, but today Bayer is his employer. He thinks since it mentioned armed forces, it implies dealing with a group, and the amount is exorbitant. So considering the recent loss in the territorial war and the compensation paid, Bayer probably shouldn't have many personal funds left. The bald man told him that if he couldn't do it, he should give it back. But he just asked the man who said he wouldn't and told him that he just had to think for a second. He left while the bald man shoutingly told him that he had to come there and give an update every 3 days, because if he didn't, they'll notify him as dead, and a bounty will be placed on him. Then the man thinks, with it he solved that problem, but he wonders why he feels like he forgot something. Then the man remembers that the Black Forest was the place where the demonic beasts appeared. He was pissed, knowing that the man should have warned him about things like it, and called the man a bald-headed bastard. He looked at the dead monster, knowing that there would be monsters there in a fantasy world, but it was his first time seeing a live one. He thinks since they count as living beings, he wonders if they give time and check the system. He was shocked to see that each one of them gives him 60 hours, making him wonder if it isn't that much better than humans. He still remembers the first time he killed someone, and it still lingers as if it happened yesterday. The sight of someone easily overwhelmed in front of Etha made him realize that he was no longer Minhyuk, a citizen of Korea, but Levi, who lives in a fantasy world. He realized that to live, he has to constantly kill living beings. Just the thought of it was arduous and scary, the thought that he had to keep doing it, the thought that he'll become someone like them, and the thought that he'll also start thinking of human life as some sort of resource. But regardless, being alive gave him a worrying sense of relief. Not surprisingly, that sense of relief didn't last more than 2 weeks, because as someone with that cursed destiny, feelings of guilt were of no help to him. Right now, while he was fighting the demons, he recalled those memories that he had almost forgotten. He realized that it wasn't the way he wanted to live, but it happened because he wanted to live. He wonders if demonic beasts usually like it because they give him a lot of time, and there are plenty of them in that world, making him think that maybe he can live without killing people. Then he wonders if he should just become a beast hunter once he is done with that job. But then someone says "Beast hunter my ass" and tells him that he is not understanding what's going on. The man reminds him that he barely made it to the forest entrance and asks him if he thinks anyone can become a beast hunter. He replied that he won't know until he tries, and asked the man who he was. The man replied that he was the beast hunter who lived in that forest. 50 years ago, demonic beasts appeared throughout the continent without any trace of origin, and there are many different species of demonic beasts. Most of them display aggressive behavior toward humans. The high-ranking ones among them are on par with knights or can even surpass them, and some of them even have special abilities. The man told him that those who hunt those things as their profession are called the beast hunters. Then the man jumped off while telling him that there are a few rules among the beast hunters, and the first of them all is not hunting on someone else's territory. Also, it doesn't matter how low-ranking the demon may be, but he is a generous fool, so he lets things slide. But if it was another hunter, he will make them pay. He tells the man that he can take them on, making the man shocked and confused. He explained to the man that he was for sure interested in hunting the demonic beasts down, but he was not interested in the loot. Then he asked the man if he knew anything about the illegal armed forces in that forest, and the man replied that he thinks they are just them, beast hunters, and was pissed because that Viscount keeps giving them such names. He replied that he understood and that he guessed he had to take back what he just said, making the man ask him what is he saying and tell him to say it so he can understand. But he just attacked the man and told him that he doesn't have any other feelings and that he was doing it because he has to. But the man just grabbed his sword using his hand and told him that he seems like a mercenary, but he was alone, and asked him if he didn't hear that a few other groups tried and failed. then teasingly told him to put on a little more strength, making him wonder how is the man holding his sword without a care for Etha. The man smilingly told him that he liked his spirit, but back during the Holy War, there were numerous talents like him. He was pissed hearing about that war again and thinks that even if he doesn't know what it was nothing a person can't handle. Then he speedily attacked the man using his sword, but he was shocked to see his sword broken even it's imbued with Etha. Then he heard the man approaching him speedily, but he still got hit on the stomach, making him thrown away in a long distance and slammed into the huge stone hard, which made him cough blood out. But then he noticed that the man was running to attack him again, so he immediately pulled his dagger out. But he once again got punched in the stomach, making the huge stone shatter into pieces too. Still, he managed to attack the man, but the man avoided it and told him that it was amusing to think he'll show his spirit till the end, so he was starting to like his personality. Then the man let him fall to the ground while saying that he didn't have any thoughts about doing it and guessed that he got a bit too excited. Then the man scratches his head, wondering what should he do with Levi, knowing that if he just leaves him there, he'll be eaten by the demonic beasts. But then the man sees blood on his hand and smilingly wonders if he gets that wound from fighting Levi. The man laughed while looking at him and guessed that he found quite a fun guy. In his dream, he saw himself thinking that he hated that world because it was a world where he must kill to survive. After the territorial battle ends, he wanders around that place to search for the living, filled with nothing but corpses, to earn a little lifespan. But he doesn't want to kill innocents if possible. Then someone laughs at him and tells him that he was not even funny when he tells lies. Then he saw Turn asking him if isn't a fallen soldier still a living person even if they were half dead, and told him that he was just lying to himself. Then told him to look at his face and ask him if it was the face of a person who hates it. But then he woke up in fear and saw men looking at him. He immediately sat up while asking where he was, but the man who punched him told him to stop screaming, and that he was too loud. Then he felt pain in his chest, making the man tell him that his wound reopened because of his action. He was shaking in pain, remembering that he got hit by that man and passed out. One of the men asked their chief how hard he hit Levi. Hearing it, he was confused, but the man just asked him if he didn't tell him earlier, and the man introduced himself as Guilford, the one in charge of all the beast hunters in that town. Then Guilford welcomed him to the beast hunter town and told him that it's been 3 days since he first arrived. He was stunned hearing about it and remembered the bald guy's words from before, making him think that he was screwed. Then he shatteringly introduced himself as Levi Delosi and was a mercenary, making Guilford ask him what he meant by was. One of the men asked their chief if that guy really a mercenary, and Guilford replied yes and that he forgot to tell them. Then Guilford told his people that Levi didn't even know about them, yet he tried to pull that task off all alone, making the hunters laugh hard while shouting that he had some serious guts. This made him a bit annoyed, but he knew he didn't have much to say because he was beaten up by a single guy. He looked at his 617 hours in the timer and thought that if he focuses on killing the weaker ones, he'll accumulate enough time to receive the war god's power, and then he can instantly kill Guilford. However, he wondered how he would do that when he didn't even know if the request period can be extended. He thought that even if he goes to the trouble of seeking revenge, he might be labeled a deserter by the mercenary guild and forced to leave. But then Guilford told him that it seems like his life has some problems going on and asked him to confirm if he said he wanted to become a beast hunter when he was done with that job and if he wishes to become a member of their town. He told Guilford that it's been only a few days since he beat him up and made him pass out, but now he wanted him to join them and asked Guilford what is with his sudden overflow of kindness. Guilford asked him back who is going to let him live for free and told him that to be there, he'll have to pay it back somehow and hunt demonic beasts. Then, Guilford explained to him that the demand for demonic beasts items is high. Their meat can be used to prepare a variety of dishes, and other parts can be used as decorations or sold for magical research. He was amazed that the demonic beasts would also give him plenty of lifespans and thought that it was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Seeing his reaction, Guilford told him that he seems like he was interested and that they should have an entrance test for him. Then, Guilford told him that in the west of the forest, there lives a stone ape demon, and although he sucks at fighting, he should be able to beat one of them. He looked at the picture, guessing that it would be easy, while Guilford told him that the ape's skin is used to make leather, so he should be careful not to chop them. He confidently agreed and told Guilford that he thinks it's going to be an excellent morning exercise for him and that he'll go catch one right away. But then he was stunned, wondering why didn't they tell him that the apes were 4 meters tall and lived in groups. The ape angrily growled at him, making him look at the picture and ask which idiot drew it. Then, the ape attacks him, which pushes him away, and he wonders if this is what Guilford meant by being picky. He notices that these apes can regenerate their wounds. One of the apes launches toward him, making different sounds. He asks it if it's an ape or a gorilla and tells it to stick to one thing, making it more angry and launching an attack at him. but he knows that in a game like this, if he wants to catch one of these guys with special abilities, he needs to be strategic. The ape furiously growls at him, but he just cuts its head off and slashes its body, knowing he needs to get rid of them one at a time and then go for the others the same way. He noticed that they were tamer than he thought. At that rate, making money and a long lifespan would be easy for him. But when he returns to town, Guilford tells him that's why he can't make any money. He tells Guilford that he caught them as instructed and asks what the problem is. Guilford tells him to think and asks how he's going to sell their skin if there are marks because no one would buy such leather. Then Guilford explains to him that stone apes lose consciousness when you cut their necks, and if you injure their bodies, you have to wait for them to regenerate, then aim for the head and knock them out. He realizes that it's not just about catching them but the approach and mindset of a hunter. He thinks he needs some time to get used to it. Then Guilford tells him that starting the next day, he will be learning beast hunting from David, but if he's no good, he's going to get kicked out. 2 weeks later, Guilford praises him because he perfectly caught 2 demonic apes. He knows that slowly but surely, he's getting used to that place. The cookman tells him that he's pretty good at butchering, and Guilford asks him if he's ever done it before, but he just keeps quiet. A few minutes later, the chef gives him a stew of the beast he caught. He's hesitant to look at it at first, but he drinks it in one go, making the chef tell him not to be too surprised. Then his world stops when he tastes it, making him realize that there are some things he can't adjust to, while the chef teasingly tells him that he ate well. So, their menu for tonight is a stew. But even then, adjusting to what comes every day for him is a challenge. The chef frustratingly asks how it happened while looking at the hunters with a bad expression on their faces because of his meal, and he no longer checks the remaining span of his life. On the other hand, Guilford, who is looking at him from above, asks the man what he thinks, and the man replies that he thinks Levy is doing fine. But Levy still doesn't talk about his past. Then Guilford asks the man if he remembers when Levy first came and told him that Levy wouldn't even eat anything they offered him. The chef explained to him that it was Phenil's food, which was pretty comparable to poison. But Levy looks away, making Guilford think that Levy probably just thought he couldn't trust them. Guilford asked Levy if he thought there was poison in there and asks who hurt him and what had made him so cautious. He then reassured Levy not to worry because he was eating it too. However, the man reminded Guilford that it was not all, and he recalled how Levy had even sneaked a look in between while everyone slept, and he even slept with a sword by his side. Apart from these unusual behaviors, Levy appeared perfectly fine, and Guilford guessed that Levy just had trust issues and wasn't a spy. Nevertheless, the man also mentioned that something still seemed off, and they were losing contact with the other posts in the forest, making Guilford think they needed someone to check on them. A minute later, Guilford told Levy that instead of hunting, he needed to go to Jones's post today, which left Levy confused. He asked if there was another beast hunter town besides that place. Guilford replied, of course, and asked if Levy thought they could patrol the entire forest all by themselves. He then instructed Levy that if he went straight west, there would be a post where he should check if the people there were doing alright. He began his way to the post while thinking that it was the first day since he came into that world that felt calm, with no nightmares and nothing to worry about. He wished that the peace would last but knew that his current world wasn't like that. Then, he saw a human corpse on the ground, noticing that the outfit resembled a beast hunter's and the wounds looked like stab marks, indicating it wasn't a beast attack but likely the work of a human, particularly someone skilled in swordplay. Suddenly, he heard someone running toward him and asked the fearfully shaking lady who she was. However, the lady just collapsed on the ground in fear. He asked her if she was from Jones' post and told her that it was good because he was looking for the way to Jones' post. Then, the lady shouted, begging him to stop, and asked what they had done wrong. She told him that if bothering them wasn't enough, they had even brought knights and mercenaries and asked why they had to do it. Just then, men appeared, saying they had spotted the bitch. One of the mercenaries teasingly commented that the lady's little legs must be tired from running, and another man asked who the man next to her was. Then, one of the men remembered his face and realized he was the guy from the bounty post, the soul harvester, Levy, quite famous for searching through dead bodies after a battle. One of the men told his companion that he had heard that after wiping out members of Levy's mercenary squad, Levy had stolen money from the mercenary guild and run away. They couldn't believe they would see him there, but Levy asked them if that was all they had to say. Then the man said that he actually have something to say. Then the man asked Levy what he wanted him to write on his will while aiming a sword at his neck. The two other men teasingly shouted that they should kill them and that it was their lucky day because they had taken care of the sweeping request and found a wanted fugitive. However, Levy just asked them if they had never threatened someone. The man aiming for him asked what he was blabbering about, and he replied that if they were going to threaten someone, they must analyze the opponent's skill beforehand. He easily cut the two men's hands who were in front of him, and they collapsed on the ground in pain. The last man threatened him not to move because he was holding the lady and told him that if he got close, he'd slice the bitch neck, asking if he thought he didn't dare. Levi just threw his sword at the man's face, making him let go of the lady and reminded them that their way of threatening someone wasn't effective. Then, he told the men that if they wanted to live, they should run away fast, which the two men with cut arms immediately did. The lady grabbed his arm and asked him if he was not on those people's side. She begged him to help her and explained that mercenaries and Bayer's army had attacked their town. However, when they arrived at the town, they were shocked to see people dead on the ground and homes destroyed. The lady tearfully said it was too late and collapsed on the ground while shakingly expressing that they were all good people. Levi was also angry and wondered what he was seeing. He noticed the broken up corpses, which were signs of a strong ether, and the entire area had been vandalized, confirming his suspicions. Then, he remembered Turn telling him not to forget that he was one of the heroes who had made a name for himself in the Holy War that happened 50 years ago. In terms of experience and skills, he was on an entirely different level compared to Levi. Turn told him to watch because his ultimate ability, which had earned him his nickname Woodcutter, could wipe everything in a 20-meter radius as if they were all trees. Levi knew it was Turn's ability, Typhoon. A moment ago, in Viscount Bayer's land in the eastern Black Forest Hunter Post, there's a lot of dead body on the ground, and a man was trying to crawl out, but then someone told the man that crawling like a worm suited him really well. The man asked that someone if he thought he could get away with it and said that if Guilford found out, they were over. However, that someone just cut the man in half and told him that it didn't matter who Guilford was, and he didn't care either because they just killed everyone who went against Viscount Bayer. One of the men called that someone Captain Marco to report that they had received a report from the scouts who went to the west. They said there was a town inside the forest, and they had a battle with someone called the Soul Harvester. Marco looked back and realized that Levi was there, but he told his people that it was even better, and he thought that he had to see Levi at least once. Meanwhile, in the Hunter Beast town, Guilford asked Levi if he meant Viscount Bayer had sent another army to kick them out. Levi replied that he thought the magnitude of the force was different that time, and recently, the Viscount had hired a lot of mercenaries for the battle. They had already lost, but since the battle was over, they were using all they had left to attack for the last time. Guilford told them that they had been frequently attacked by massive armies before, but none of them were big enough to make the posts fall. He asked if that was how they were going to play it and guessed that they would take all of them alive and go against Viscount Bayer. He asked Guilford if they wouldn't be killing them, but Guilford asked him back why a beast hunter would kill a human and told him that it could happen unintentionally, but they weren't murderers. Levi told Guilford that he understood but warned him to be careful because there was a really strong mercenary among them, and if he was the man he knew, it would be a difficult fight. Guilford replied that he noted that and asked him if the lady was his companion. Then, Guilford told him that they were planning to separate the roles to prepare for the battle, but the lady told Guilford that she never battled when she was at Mr. Jones's post. Still, Guilford reassured her that a role didn't always have to involve fighting, so she shouldn't worry because there was one role that suited her. The night came, and Marco with his people saw Levi with the lady sitting near a bonfire. The lady, trembling, asked him if he was sure that the perfect role of being the bait to draw attention outside the post was for her. Marco said that it was so obvious that they were trying to draw attention with a fire near the post with bait, and told his people that they would get closer slowly. One of the men was about to kick Levi while asking where the others were, but the man was surprised to see his feet being cut off and fell to the ground in pain. Levi complimented the lady, saying she did a great job, and told her to hide inside the post. He said he would take it from there. The men rushed toward him, while their leader told everyone that he was all alone and they should go after him. But he just asked them if they didn't understand that they were already trapped. As one of the men stepped on the soft grass, the man who was charging at Levi fell into a huge hole. One of the remaining men warned everyone to be careful where they stood because there might be more holes. Then they heard a loud sound behind them. It was too late for them to react because a huge tree trunk swung toward them, causing them to fall into the hole too. On the other hand, the other men were being led down another path by their leader. He assured them it was the right way because there was nothing wrong with the ground there. However, he didn't realize he had stepped on a trap, and a large trap captured many of them. Meanwhile, Guilford and the others were emerging from the bushes. Guilford asked if the soldiers in those days were really that foolish. He thought it might be a bit tough for them, as they were walking right into traps. Then Guilford spotted someone massive in the distance and wondered if it was the powerful knight Levi had warned him about. Marco scolded his comrades, calling them idiots, and ordered them to cut the ropes with their knives and escape. Guilford kicked one of the men caught in the rope, warning them not to listen to their captain and to cut the ropes carefully. If they didn't, they would fall into the pit when the rope swung back, dropping them into the large hole behind them. Then Guilford shouted loudly to Levi, telling him that it was the right way and the person he had been talking about. This shocked Marco, and he asked if the soul harvester was there, not noticing Levi behind him. Levi then attacked Marco, but Marco blocked his sword, and he realized that Marco was different. They both attacked each other using their swords, and Levi noticed that Marco's way of using Etha, fighting style with the axe, and everything else was the same as Turn's. However, Marco was actually a bit faster than Turn. So, he asked Marco if he wasn't Turn, which made Marco confused and angrily asked how dare Levi mention that name in front of him. This made Levi even more confused about whether he was Turn or not. Then a beast emerged from the forest in anger and growled at them, leaving them wondering why there was a demonic beast there. Marco realized that the route for the trapped soldiers was blocked by the beasts. He found it astonishing because they were not only using traps but also the environment. This made him wonder if this was how beast hunters fought. Guilford told them to stop and explained that they needed to capture the beasts alive. Since the beasts were already there, they should deal with them first. Levi was stunned and confused by this, but the beasts kept attacking them continuously. Guilford shouted for everyone to get back inside the outpost and ordered the hunters to form a line. They needed to calmly fight back. However, Levi and Marco were still locked in combat, even though one of the beasts was running towards them. Guilford noticed that there were also beasts on their side and shouted for Levi to dodge. It was not the time for them to be fighting. When the beast was about to devour them both, they angrily told it to be quiet and swung their swords at it together while telling it to go away. On the other hand, the other ape-like beast was getting punched in the face, and that force pierced through its face, causing it to explode into pieces. Guilford went down to the ground, and then the beast fell dead. Guilford was confused about why even the stone monkeys were there when they don't usually come out of the forest. But then, someone shouted that the walls were down, and they needed to stop the beasts from getting over. One of the beasts opened its mouth to eat the man, and many more appeared, making the hunters realize that they were wolf beasts. They wondered why such high-ranking beasts were in that place. Guilford expressed his frustration and asked what was happening in the center of the forest. A moment later, a beast was down on the ground, and Marco said it seemed endless while wondering what was going on. Then the beast opened its eyes again and attacked Marco, but Levi appeared and cut the beast's neck, leaving Marco shocked. Levi told Marco that they should team up because stone monkeys keep regenerating until their heads are chopped off, so Marco should stop wasting time and aim for their heads. Marco shouted back that it was his plan all along, to which Levi uninterestedly agreed. But then another beast launched toward them to eat them, and Levi warned Marco not to die because he still had business with him. Levi jumped toward the beasts, leaving Marco confused. Marco released his power and said that he wouldn't die because if anyone had to die, it would be him. He aimed for the beasts and released his attack, shocking Levi. It easily cut the beast's head in one clean strike. Marco continued to attack, cutting off the heads of many beasts. Then, Marco teasingly told Levi that he was right, they don't regenerate when their heads are cut off, both the stone monkeys and himself. But then a sword flew toward Marco's direction, and hits Marco's face armor with his sword. Levi warned Marco that it would be his first and last warning and that if he attacked from behind, he would die. Marco's face armor fell to the ground, and Marco commented that it was unexpected that the infamous soul harvester was giving warnings. Seeing Marco's face, Levi realized that he was not Turn. Marco asked Levi if his father hadn't told him anything about him, but Levi just asked Marco what he meant by father. Marco replied that he was the son of Turn, the man he had killed a few days ago. Levi was shocked to hear that the old man Turn had a son and asked Marco if he wanted to take revenge. Marco replied no, saying he was just thankful that he had taken care of such trash. Marco told Levi that it seemed Turn hadn't even mentioned him to the mercenary troop he cherished like a family. Suddenly, they felt the ground shaking and heard a rumbling sound from underground. Something powerful emerged from the ground, throwing people aside, and huge underground beasts attacked those who were wondering what kind of beasts they were this time. One of Bayer's men was captured by a beast and was about to be eaten, but Guilford punched the beast's head, causing it to release the man. The man asked Guilford who he was and why he had saved him when they were enemies. Guilford simply told the man that if he had the energy to talk, he should help him save his allies. There was no place to retreat anymore, so it was not the time to choose sides. They needed to save anyone they could. The man shouted at Guilford, asking if he was crazy and telling him that they were their enemies and saving them wouldn't be of any use. Guilford replied by telling him not to judge a human by their usefulness and that they didn't need a reason to save humans. This left Levi shocked, thinking it was common sense. In his head, Levi wondered if Guilford was saying that they should save humans, which was called morality in his original world. In that world, it was called the mindset of a knight. However, he knew that even in his past life and this life, he had never seen anything like that really work. This made him realize that Guilford was truly the first real knight he had seen in that world. But then Marco interjected, calling it bullshit and claiming that his boss didn't know how to use people. He asked why the strong ones should sacrifice themselves to save the weak ones. Marco told Levi to look at the weak people and explain that even if they made an effort to save them, they couldn't even handle 1 or 2 beasts. Then, Marco activated his power while saying that in times like these, the strong ones should take care of the problem to decrease casualties. He shouted at Marco to wait and warned that if he used that skill, all his subordinates would also die. However, Marco, smiling, replied that he knew and reminded him that he had said it was actually the solution to save many, but he blocked Marco's attack and forcefully prevented him from using it. He angrily asked Marco if he didn't care whether his allies lived or died. Marco teasingly asked him back what he was saying and told him that he never intended to kill his allies because they were just tools. He believed they should be helped in that way at least. Then, he assured him not to worry because it would be worth their lives. He asked why he suddenly felt empathy after mowing down people on the battlefield, even his own allies. He questioned why he, an expert at taking lives, would save people. He told Marco that he was right, leaving Marco shocked. He continued by asking why he would save people who had come to kill him. He mentioned he didn't know about Guilford, but he wouldn't do it. Then, he severed Marco's hand while stating that, as he had said, he was an expert at killing people. He thanked Marco because, thanks to him, he had figured out what he should do and informed him that his job was to eliminate bastards like him. Marco shockingly called him a bastard. Then, he checked his timer and saw that he had 940 hours left. He lifted his sword, thinking that Marco was trash compared to Turn. However, Marco was still a knight, so he was sure 60 hours were fine. He then stabbed Marco while telling him not to think it was too unfair because life is worth using. He pulled his sword out but was upset that Marco wasn't dead yet. When he was about to stab Marco again, he felt the ground shake hard and heard a loud sound underground. A huge beast emerged, shocking everyone. It growled loudly in anger and glared at them. He shouted, asking what that unrealistically big monster was. Guilford, who was shocked to see it, replied that it was a monster called the owner of the mountain, Red Bear. Then they noticed that it came out from the rocky mountain, making Guilford wonder what was going on. Suddenly, a beast's hand launched to attack him, taking him by surprise. He still got hit by Marco, who had a new beast's hand. He thought it was impossible because he knew Marco's arm was cut off and his chest was punctured. He wondered how Marco was alive and what was up with Marco's arm, as it looked like the arm of a stone monkey beast. Marco, who was consuming something in a bottle, asked how a mere random mercenary dared to call him trash. He spit out the bottle and angrily asked how he dared while the bottle fell to the ground. When Marco was young, his own father, Turn, slashed him in the face. Turn disappointingly asked if Marco couldn't even block it and called him trash. He told Marco that he would have ended up dead if it were a real battlefield. Marco angrily asked Turn if he couldn't see it and if he was planning to break his son's head. Turn simply told him that the blade commonly bounced off during battle and ordered him to stop whining and stand up. Turn added that if Marco didn't want to, he could just die like trash. When Marco was older, people around him whispered that he was a trash-like bastard and teasingly asked if the son of a mere mercenary could be a knight. They thought it must be a joke and were sure he wasn't that good either. People didn't stop the rumors because they told others that Viscount Bayer took him and because Turn, his father, had sold his allies to him. They were sure that a son would only learn trashy things from a trashy father. A moment later, Viscount Bayer asked if it was what he had done to his senior knights and called him Marco, Turn's son. The two men who were holding him down shouted, telling him that the Viscount was questioning him and ordered him to answer while calling him trash. But he just told them that trash is a word for people like them and asked what the knights from his noble family had done until now. Hadn't they all just died on the battlefield where the Viscount's name was at risk? How could people like them judge him? Bayer told him that he was talking as if it would have been different if it were him. To this, he confidently replied, "Of course, because I am worth more than those bastards, and I am strong." He then asked Bayer if that scene didn't prove it. Bayer asked him if he did it to prove his worth and called him foolish and arrogant. But he told him that it was what a warrior should be like. Then Bayer told him that from that day on, he was the leader of all the knights there. Later, Bayer told him that it was weird to tell him this after assigning him to be the leader of the knights. Actually, his father was supposed to take that place. He asked Bayer if that was the reason why he gave him the position. And Bayer replied that it was not the only reason. He then asked him if he hadn't heard the news and told him that Turn was dead. He was shocked to hear it and asked if Turn had been killed. Bayer replied that they weren't sure, but the whole mercenary troop was annihilated, except for one man called the Soul Harvester, Levi. He smiled, thinking that he was getting a lot of things thanks to Levi. Not only did he take care of those arrogant knights, but also Turn. Bayer told him that he had just heard the news about the death of his father, but he didn't seem sad. He replied that his father used to say that people would die as trash if they weren't strong. So, based on what his father said, it seemed like Turn died because he was trash. There was no time for him to grieve for trash, to which Bayer smilingly agreed. He told him that they should get to the chase and asked if he saw that huge rock. He explained to him that it symbolized monsters coming out of the Black Forest. Bayer also mentioned that he didn't know if he was aware, but the items obtained during a monster hunt could fetch quite a handsome amount. Recently, he had been spending a lot on the battle, so he needed a source of income. Then he told him that there were troublesome rogues in that forest who were camping. He replied that he understood and asked if all he needed to do was to eliminate them all. Bayer gave him something while saying that he was easy to talk to and explained that he would give him a small gift to wish him good luck. He asked Bayer what it was, and Bayer replied that it wasn't anything too great. However, if he used it when facing a strong opponent, it would be a great help. When the bottle hit the ground, he immediately ran toward Levi to attack. He swung his monster's hand forward, and Levi blocked it with his sword. Still, it released a powerful impact that broke the ground in their surroundings. Marco teasingly asked Levi where his bravery went now and told him that he was only blocking his attack. He challenged Levi to try cutting his arm, just like he did a while ago, and teased Levi to cut him anywhere he wanted. Marco's monster hand hit Levi's sword hard, making Levi push back, but he was shocked to see Marco speedily appear above him. Then Marco launched his fist forward and told Levi to die. It hit Levi, breaking the ground due to the strong force. But Marco was shocked to see that someone was simply blocking his fist using one hand. Guilford, who was aiming his other fist, apologized to Marco for intervening but explained that they were in a hurry. Then Guilford punched Marco, making him fly through the air. He thanked Guilford for helping but told him that he could have handled it himself. Guilford told him that there was no need. Suddenly, Guilford punched him hard in the stomach and apologized while explaining that it was much more than what a beast hunter could handle, while the red bear is looking at them. A moment later, the hunters asked, "What about Bayer's army?" One of them replied that they were on their way, and Phenile is carrying Levi. Then, one of them asked Guilford, "Won't Levi be mad if he finds out later?" Guilford replied that Levi would resent them, but it isn't a situation where they can ask for help from outsiders, they were the ones who should take care of it. Guilford asked his people what they thought would happen if such a demonic beast came out of that forest. He told them that a horrible disaster was imminent, so even if they were killed in the process, they should buy as much time as they could to let the citizens escape. Half a century ago, the god of the demon kind, Chaos, and his army came to invade the continents. Everyone on the continent joined forces against him and had a war that would be called the Holy War in the far future. To avert the invasion, different kinds of species gathered and eventually won the war. However, in the aftermath of the Holy War, most of the races other than humans became extinct. Soon after, unidentified demonic beasts started to appear all over the continent. The protagonist of the Holy War, Emperor Troyson, ordered the nobles to share the responsibility for the problems caused by the demonic beasts. Numerous knights volunteered to manage the places where demonic beasts appeared. But the truth was, they were forced. One of the knights told his companions to wait, and Guilford reminded them that they had said the nobles should be responsible. He asked the emperor if it was really what he wanted, but the emperor didn't answer Guilford's question. The high priest asked Guilford how dare he talk back to the emperor and if he wanted to do the mission instead of them. But the emperor stayed silent even after what the high priest said. After that, Guilford started living in that forest as a beast hunter. He regretted nothing and shouted that even if he died today, he would kill at least one big demonic beast before he went. Then the hunters proceeded to kill beasts around them continuously without stopping. Guilford thought that although he was kind of expecting it, it was really endless. But then the red bear furiously released a loud scream, which made him feel the unknown, disgusting but fierce aura that was emanating from the owner of the mountain. The beasts ran toward him to attack, but he just ran toward them to meet them, thinking that it was not as sinister as that giant demonic beast, but he could feel the same aura from the other demonic beasts too. The beasts surrounded him, but he simply attacked them using his fist to break free. Before he could be overwhelmed, he once again activated his fist power and powerfully punched the ground, releasing an electric shock that hit every beast around him. Then he quickly jumped upward, thinking that he was sure that the root cause of the madness of those demonic beasts was that giant demonic beast, the red bear. He aimed his powerful fist toward it while telling it that he didn't know which kind of aura it was exuding, so he will check it himself, then punched the diamond in the bear's chest, making it scream in pain. Then he saw another huge diamond inside its body and told it that he will break it in one go. But then the diamond released a powerful light, making him confused. It became even stronger and caused a loud explosion, making Phenile, who was lifting Levi, stop and worriedly ask, "What was that explosion? Is our boss, Guilford, alright?" Without noticing that Levi had woken up, he asked Phenile where he was and where he was taking him. Levi held his stomach, remembering Guilford, and asked, "What is it about?" Phenile couldn't believe that he was awake already, but he just asked Phenile why and if he thought he would be knocked out for 4 days again. Final told him that he didn't have much time to explain, so he should listen carefully. He explained to him that the giant demonic beast he had just seen is called a red bear. It harnesses ether and a magic stone embedded in its chest, and as he knew, with that size, they can call it a disaster. So their boss, Guilford, said they can't get him in trouble and asked him to get him out of the forest. Levi angrily asked Final, "What the hell are you saying?" and told him that if it is that dangerous, he should fight too because they are allies. Then he told Final that he knew it was hard to believe, but if he killed just a few more demonic beasts, he could. But Final shakingly interrupted him, begging him to just evacuate the people outside the forest and be in charge of warning the Empire. When Final was about to say that their association was formed for something, someone cut off Final's hand, making him stunned in shock, and worriedly called Final's name. But then Final fell to the ground, making him shocked in horror. Marco teasingly laughed while telling him that he should have seen his face, and that it was a shame because he would have been able to puncture him if it wasn't for Final. Then he told him that it was the destiny of the weak one, and the lives of the weak ones only exist for the strong ones. But he just held Final, who was slowly dying, but still told him to run and save himself. He carefully put down Final on the ground while asking Marco if he said that the lives of the weak ones exist for the strong. He told Marco that he was right, then he stabbed Final while telling him that his life would be worth it. Marco laughingly told him that he killed his own ally and he thought he should be worried about himself instead of bringing peace to his ally. But then Marco's expression changed when Levi told him that he needed to clarify two things. First, he didn't do it just for Final, then in an instant he stabbed Marco in the stomach using his huge sword. Then he told Marco that second, he doesn't have to be worried about himself because he and him aren't a match right now. He then sliced Marco in half, who was about to ask what it was, but he just told Marco not to be sad because his life will be far more worth using. Then he looked at Marco, who was cut in half lying on the ground, and told him that it seemed like he couldn't regenerate if his head cracked open. He mentioned that his regenerating ability and the time he had acquired were equivalent to killing a ton of stone monkeys. He wondered if humans could gain the powers of monsters but decided to set that thought aside because he believed it wasn't important at the moment. What was crucial was dealing with that giant monster. Before he left, he informed Final that he would have to postpone his wish to send him away from that place. Then he immediately runs toward where the beasts were, thinking that he had used its skill at the cost of Final's life, so he couldn't stop there. Meanwhile, at the top of the forest, Guilford was thrown hard to the ground. He realized that it would have been dangerous if he had been a bit slower. Then he saw the red bear healing its chest, making him wonder if killing it was even possible. It let out a furious scream, and he urged his people not to get scared and to attack it together. They all ran toward it to attack. One of the men punched its body, but his hand went inside, and he felt that it was squishy. Suddenly, a monster emerged from its body and devoured the man alive, while the others were pierced by it. Guilford anxiously warned everyone to be cautious because its body was changing. He was shocked to see that it had completely transformed, leading him to question what it was, as he knew it wasn't just a regular demonic beast. The squishy beasts rushed toward them swiftly and easily consumed the men in their path. He believed it was a phenomenon he had witnessed in the last Holy War, and he was certain that the strange energy entering its body was causing this abnormal phenomenon. A squishy beast flew toward him, but he also jumped towards them to attack, knowing they couldn't win if they didn't break through. The beast attacked him, but he skillfully evaded it. One of the squishy beasts opened its mouth to devour him, but he killed it just in time before it could. Then, many squishy beasts appeared in front of him, leaving him shocked. He activated his power and told them to fuck off. He swiftly sliced the beasts in half that stood in his way, and then he immediately jumped toward the red bear. He punched its chest once again, making it scream in agony. Then he aimed his fist directly at the diamond inside it, realizing that wasting more time would only lead to more casualties. He struck it with all his might, even though he believed he had used up all the ether he had. However, to his amazement, it didn't even leave a single scratch. He saw that it was regenerating, so he grabbed its flesh and forcefully prevented it from healing, knowing they couldn't waste any more time. Then he used his head to strike the diamond, realizing that he had to finish it right there and right now. He continuously headbutted it, urging it to break, even though his head was bleeding profusely. He persisted, but then his eyesight started to blur, making him wonder if this was the end. He knew he wasn't afraid of dying, but losing here would result in many more deaths. However, someone interrupted his thoughts, mentioning the noise he was making. Levi informed him that it was easy to locate him due to all the noise. Guilford quickly looked back and asked Levi why he was there. Levi simply told Guilford to hold tight because he was going to unleash everything at once. Then he instructed Raum to change weapons, and the system indicated that borrowing Raum's double-sided blade would deduct 12 hours of his life every second. Guilford wondered if he was dreaming because he recognized that the power Levi was unleashing wasn't ether, but rather the power of the war god, Raum. Levi swung his sword with all his might, effortlessly slicing the diamond inside and the creature's body itself, resulting in a powerful explosion. A few minutes later, only a cloud of dust remained in the air, and the hunters witnessed the deformed demonic beast's body starting to disintegrate. They wondered if their boss, Guilford, had succeeded. Others shouted that it was over and that they were saved. On the other hand, Levi told Guilford that there was something he wanted to know. He tells that if he hadn't arrived, he would have died. Despite coming to save him, Levi still didn't fully understand and asked Guilford why he had taken such a reckless action when he could have just left and let the Viscount handle it. Guilford inquired if that was the question Levi wanted to ask and explained that a beast hunter's duty was to eliminate demonic beasts. He questioned why he would let someone else kill such a massive demonic beast. Levi smiled, showing he understood, but then Guilford asked him about himself, reminding him that he had claimed it had nothing to do with him. Levi countered by asking Guilford what he meant by saying it had nothing to do with him and why he would let someone else kill such a colossal demonic beast, considering that it was actually worth it, as he had gained 1,637 hours. Then he added that he, too, couldn't ignore it as a beast hunter, leaving Guilford shocked. Levi then chuckled and asked Guilford why he would consider himself a beast hunter with his abilities. Guilford also inquired if Levi could call himself a beast hunter after destroying such a massive demonic beast without leaving any materials behind. Levi responded that Guilford should teach him well to prevent such a situation from happening again. Guilford agreed and promised to teach him thoroughly starting tomorrow. Levi expressed his anticipation for it but then began to fall, confusing Guilford. Levi fell hard to the ground, and Guilford anxiously asked if he was okay, to which Levi replied that he was not. He was frustrated that this happened every time the war god buff ended and wondered about the beeping sound. Then he was shocked to see the system indicating that he could no longer use Raum's blessing.